Il est l'une des figures du militantisme écolo aux États-Unis, mais il est aussi autosuffisant, minimaliste, zéro déchet, et il vit dans une tiny house. Bref, il incarne tout ce qui nous inspire, nous, chez 18h39. J'ai le plaisir de se revoir aujourd'hui Rob Greenfield. Bonjour Rob.
Bonjour.
Comme je viens de le dire, on vous présente souvent comme un aventurier, un activiste écolo, un expert du zéro déchet, parfois même comme un entrepreneur. Qui êtes-vous, Rob Greenfield?
Basically, I'm just a person that's trying to live a life where my actions are in alignment with my beliefs, where I can wake up each day and know that my life is not causing injustice and inequality and destruction, and ideally, that my life is actually improving the quality of life of other people and other species that we share the earth with. So it's largely just trying to live a good life, and then the other equally important aspect is to be a good example. I'm trying to show people that another way is possible from the current way of life that we have that causes so much destruction and inequality, and trying to do things in a way that really shock people and get them to self-reflect and question their lives, question their values, and take actions to live in a more sustainable, equal and just way.
Vous étiez en France parce que vous étiez en train de faire un tour du monde des solutions, mais bon, il y a eu le coronavirus entre-temps. Est-ce que vous avez réussi à continuer à être minimaliste et autosuffisant même pendant le confinement?
It was an interesting thing because I left the United States about 5 months ago. I had recently done a year where I grew and foraged all my food, living in a tiny house, and was living a very self-sufficient life, independent of the global industrial food system and so much of the trappings of society. And then when I left, I simplified my life down to everything I owned fitting into a backpack. And I have right now just under 50 possessions. So the idea of this actually at this point, I was going to be on a world speaking tour for about a year. And the idea was actually not to be self-sufficient. The idea was actually to be dependent upon other people, to be, as I traveled, giving talks, sharing solutions, to be staying with people everywhere that I went and to be immersing with others. And part of the idea of having so few possessions is actually to embrace the fact that I'm dependent upon other people. Today, our society teaches us to be independent. The idea in much of Western society is earn money to pay for everything you need and you want, so you don't need anyone else. And that's created this, what I consider an illusion of independence. People think they're independent, but the truth is behind everything we do, there's other people that are needed. Every dollar we spent, someone else is there providing those goods or services. So by living with so little and being dependent upon others as I travel, the idea is getting people to really question what is independence and ultimately question the way we design society to be independent, to instead try to design society to be much more community-oriented, where we actually do take care of each other and depend on one another.
Avant votre voyage, vous avez passé une année où vous avez fait pousser et vous avez cueilli la totalité de votre nourriture. Vous étiez complètement autosuffisant en nourriture. Ce qui veut dire que vous n'êtes jamais allé au restaurant, vous n'êtes jamais allé dans une épicerie. Tout venait de votre jardin et de la nature. Comment ça s'est passé? C'était pas trop compliqué au départ?
Well, it was definitely one of the most beautiful years of my life. I started in Florida, is where I decided to do the project, and I arrived there with almost nothing. I had no land, and the idea was that I was going to go from having never grown food there or very little in my life to growing and foraging all my food, and I gave myself 6 months. But I didn't have any land, and I had minimal experience, so I was really starting from scratch. And what I did is I spoke to people in the community, and I asked them if they would like their front yards turned into gardens, and that's what I did. I turned 6 yards into gardens, and that's where I grew my food. And then I shared the food with the owners. They could eat all the food that they wanted. So that's how I got started, and then I also foraged a lot of my food from nature, whether it was fishing, going to the woods and foraging for mushrooms or different wild greens, berries, fruits. And over the year, I ate 200 different foods that I foraged from the wild, 100 different foods from my garden, so over 300 different foods, so it was very diverse. And it was difficult, extremely difficult. I had In the middle, I became sort of deficient in fat and protein. I was struggling. I wasn't able to catch enough fish, basically. But by the end of it, I started to catch more fish and I met my needs. And by the end of it, when I finished the year, I was definitely one of the healthiest and happiest that I've been in my adult life.
Qu'est-ce qui vous a le plus manqué pendant cette expérience?
I think the thing that I missed the most was convenience, because all the food that I was making was from scratch. So, imagine for most people that are busy, they can pick up ingredients, already pre-made meals at the store, or if they're in a hurry, they can just stop and grab food at a restaurant. But everywhere I went, I couldn't stop into a restaurant, couldn't stop into a grocery store. And so I had to be really prepared, and it was very, time consuming compared to the way we currently design our food system. I missed convenience and olive oil. I didn't really have much oil, so I missed that. Maybe missed some bread from time to time.
Vous avez parlé de votre jardin. Au départ, c'était juste une pelouse très normale et vous en avez fait un potager incroyable, comme si c'était une espèce de supermarché à ciel ouvert. C'est quoi votre secret?
So what I did is I connected with the local community, the local permaculturists and gardeners. I went to classes, I visited other people's gardens and the community gardens, I volunteered on farms, I read books, I watched videos online, and I just accumulated all of the local knowledge that I could, and then I put it into action. And then the other thing would be, again, not really a secret, but just hard work. I made it my full-time job to really deeply immerse in the food system, to understand the food system, and to understand how I can work with the earth to produce the resources that I need in order to, ideally really thrive, have everything I need.
Ce qui est très intéressant, je trouve, avec vous, c'est que vous ne vivez pas genre au plein milieu de la nature, coupé de la civilisation. Vous viviez à Orlando, en Floride. Est-ce que ça veut dire que tout le monde peut se rapprocher de l'autosuffisance, même quand on vit dans une grande ville?
In most urban settings, you cannot live a self-sufficient life. You can join a community garden and grow some of your own food, or you can grow some herbs on your balcony, or even just your windowsill. So there's things that we can all do, but the cities are not designed for self-sufficiency. The city that I lived in, although it was a large city and actually one of the most fastly developing cities in the United States, still people have a large yard where there's lots of green space where I was able to grow plenty of food. But to be in central Paris and try to produce a lot of food would be quite difficult. Now, with that being said, there's a lot that can be done. Apartment rooftops can be converted into gardens. In New York City, there's some of the largest rooftop gardens in the world where they produce thousands and thousands of pounds of food. I'm sure there's initiatives like that in Paris. But if you live in a very dense urban environment, it's quite challenging to produce a large amount of food. It's quite challenging to live sustainably.
On vous a connu un peu autour du monde à partir de 2016 parce que vous avez fait un challenge qui s'appelle Trash Me, où vous portiez pendant 30 jours les déchets que vous produisiez. Comment est-ce que vous avez eu cette idée? Qu'est-ce que vous vouliez faire passer comme message?
Well, the idea came from a documentary called Super Size Me, which you might have seen. Morgan Spurlock ate just McDonald's for 30 days. Did you see that?
Yeah.
So I like to look at things that are successful in bringing attention to issues, and then how can I apply that to environmental issues that have that need a lot more attention brought to them. So I decided that he ate McDonald's for 30 days, and instead what I would do is I would just live like the average American, so eat, shop, and consume like the average American, but I'd have to wear every piece of trash that I created. And the average person in Western Europe or the United States creates about 2 kilos or 4.5 pounds of trash per day. So every day I just added that trash to the suit that I had designed that had clear pockets, and it added up and it added up, and by the end I was wearing about 45 kilos or 90 pounds of trash. Everywhere I went in New York City, people saw what I was doing, and you could see the wheels turning inside their head, and that they would often look at me and they would ask me, "What are you doing?" And I would just simply say, "I'm living like the average person and wearing my trash." And they would see that I was them.
Vous êtes aussi très engagé contre le gaspillage alimentaire et le gaspillage de l'eau. J'ai lu que vous aviez passé 5 jours à boire l'eau d'un robinet qui fuit. C'est quoi le but? Qu'est-ce que vous avez essayé de montrer avec ça?
Yeah, I guess you could say that I'm kind of against wasting anything. One of the most basic things we can do is just simply not waste things. So I was in New York City and I saw a leaking fire hydrant, and it was just, dripping water out of it. And so I put my water bottle under it, and it only took maybe 1 minute to fill the water bottle. And so I decided that for 5 days I would live off that fire hydrant. So I went there every morning for my shower to bathe in it. I wore my shorts so I wasn't naked in the streets. Filled my water, brushed my teeth, did my laundry in it.
Vous êtes aussi quelqu'un de minimaliste. Vous n'avez, comme vous nous l'avez dit, plus que 44 choses, objets. Qu'est-ce que vous avez gardé? Comment est-ce que vous avez fait le choix entre ce qu'il faut garder et ce dont il faut se débarrasser?
Yeah, so when I arrived in Europe, I had 44 possessions. Right now, I might have 47, something like that. Give or take, I lose things or get new things from time to time. But so before this, before I lived in the tiny house in Orlando, I had actually simplified my life down to 111 possessions. When I did that, the idea was to really have just about everything I needed to live a pretty self-sufficient, pretty zero-waste life. Now, having 44 possessions, the reality is that I'm not as self-sufficient. I don't have a tent or a sleeping bag, for example, so I can't just go out into the woods and camp like I could before. Before I would carry a knife and a water purifier and all those things. But for this current trip that I was on, the idea was that I wasn't going to be doing that. I was going to be staying with people. So I have a lot fewer items. And basically what I have today is clothes, 2 pairs of shorts, a pair of pants, 4 shirts, a sweater, 1 pair of socks, a pair of sandals, and then a backpack and a smaller backpack. The other things are personal hygiene, like a toothbrush and toothpaste. One important item I have is my pot, which I use as a bowl or a to-go container or for cooking. I have my computer for social media, for email, for researching, for writing, for producing videos and such. Basically, what I'm carrying right now is the essential items that I need to meet my daily basic needs, as well as to be able to carry out my mission.
Il y a une phrase de Gandhi que vous utilisez souvent qui dit « Sois le changement que tu désires voir dans le monde ». Est-ce que vous pensez que les éco-gestes peuvent faire la différence dans le changement climatique et le déclin de la biodiversité? Parce qu'il y a de nombreuses personnes qui disent que justement c'est un combat qui doit se mener à une échelle plus grande, politique notamment.
I don't believe that our individual actions are enough to end climate change or mass extinction of species and biodiversity loss. Definitely not. Then my belief is that we need radical transformation of everything, of society, of politics, of the way we do business. We need to radically transform it all. The reason that individual actions still really matter, though, there's many reasons, but one is because it creates empowered individuals. And so one of the ideas of changing ourselves is to become empowered people who can really lead by example and stand up for what we believe more strongly. So I believe that when you are the change that you wish to see in the world, you're able to, in a much more strong manner, stand up to the corruption and the injustice. And the other thing is that, yes, our individual actions, although they will not solve the global catastrophe that we're in, they really do add up. So when I wore all of my trash for a month, after 1 month I was wearing so much trash that it was becoming extremely difficult to move. So I started to imagine, 1 year of trash, and then imagine 10 years, and imagine a lifetime. In one lifetime, each of us as individuals can make enough trash to leave behind a small mountain of trash for future generations, or no mountain of trash at all. That's meaningful. And then if you look at all of our actions, all of the ways that we interact with the world, and if we shift the way we do it, the impact that we can have in our lifetime for better or worse through our actions is truly meaningful.
Vous venez de sortir en France un livre qui s'appelle Le drôle de voyage de Mr. Green aux éditions Nautilus. Voilà, c'est pour celles et ceux qui voudront en savoir plus sur votre parcours et vos combats. Merci beaucoup, Rob Greenfield, d'être venu nous rendre visite.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.